Hello, everyone, and welcome to the course of World History. I'm your host, Mr. Samuelson, and today we are looking at World War II, the first of two parts where we're going to look at paths to war. Today is the German path to war. So we have two essential questions today. Number one, how did Germany take advantage of the Allies' desire to avoid war, and what eventually led to the start of World War II? Let's begin. So the German path to war. World War II had its roots in the Nazi desire to create this Aryan Empire. This was tied into the idea that a growing Germany would need more room for more Aryans. So to support this growing empire, they would need more territory. Now, Hitler suggests this land would exist to the east of Germany. And the Slavic people of the Soviet Union would wind up being slaves to the Aryan people. Now, here we can see the idea of Lebensraum, living space for the Germans, as they push east and occupy other territories. Now, to prepare for conflict, Hitler was getting ready for it. He increased his army from 100,000 to 550,000 and built an air force. He also then moved this military into a part of Germany that was demilitarized after World War I. This is called the Rhineland. It borders those nations which Germany had invaded in World War I. Now, this was illegal. These actions violated the Treaty of Versailles, which Germany had signed. But France and Britain both did not want a war. And they did not want to fight a war over Germany increasing its military, but not, to a monstrously high number. 500,000 was not monstrously high, nor a war over Germany simply occupying their own territory. They felt that this was not worth their time and effort, especially as they were busy with the issues of the Great Depression. So as Germany is arming, they also realize that they need to have friends if there's going to be any conflict in the future. So they reach out to Italy. Hitler had always been a big fan of Mussolini, a little bit of hero worship there. And when Mussolini decided in 1935 to invade Ethiopia and to try again for a colonial empire in Africa, Germany offers support to the Italians as a offer of friendship. This partnership then expands in 1936 when Spain gets into their civil war, and the fascists are fighting for control of the country. Again, this is Franco. Franco was also somebody who had studied Mussolini and was trying to create a nation in Spain in that fascist model. Germany and Italy see this as an opportunity to test their partnership and also to try out new war tactics and weaponry. So this new partnership between Germany and Italy becomes known as the Rome-Berlin Axis. This new alliance is formed. And before the year is out, Japan will also join that axis. So the union with Austria is what comes up next. 1937, Germany was once again a world power. Okay, their economy was starting to recover. They were growing. They were expanding. They had self-respect, and they were getting respect of their nation neighbors. And by 1937, they could match Britain or France, but not both of them. So Germany still needed to grow. 1938, part of that strategy was to unite with Austria. This was the idea that Germany should create one German empire for all German people. Austrians are Germanic, and Germany was seeking to bring them in through the Anschluss. Now, by threatening invasion, Hitler threatened invasion, they were able to convince the government of Austria to appoint Nazis to high position, the Austrian Nazi government. But once the Nazis were in these high positions, they simply invited the Germans to come in and annex the country, which Germany did. This is a famous speech given by Hitler in Vienna. Now, this was somewhat of a homecoming for Hitler. He was born in Austria, but again, always saw himself as Germanic and German because of that ethnic group. So demands and appeasement. Hitler's next plan was to absorb the German parts of Czechoslovakia. This territory right here in white, that is called the Sudetenland. The Sudetenland was populated by ethnic Germans. And Hitler said, these are ethnic Germans. They should come within the greater German territory. And Hitler expressed a willingness to fight to get them. A quick conference was called amongst the great powers. France and Britain show up, and they go to the Munich conference, and they meet with Hitler, and they find him to be a reasonable, rational person. He kind of pulled himself together for this meeting, and he had an explosive temper normally, was not seen as a rational person. But at this meeting, he held it down. He put out the front and simply said, look, we want one German nation for one German people. The Sudetenland is essential to that. Once we have the Sudeten Germans, then all Germans are in our nation, and we're set. We don't need any more. The Allies believed this. They believed that they had avoided war by simply allowing Germany to take the Sudetenland. Czechoslovakia was not consulted. They were a lesser power. So they just handed it over without Czechoslovakia's approval. And the British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, proudly proclaimed that we shall have peace for our time, believing that this had finally sated the German appetite. So the Munich conference convinced the Allies that Hitler would not go to war. And on the flip side, it convinced Hitler that the Allies feared war, and that he could do whatever he wanted, and the Allies would never fight him. So to test this, in 1939, he simply invaded Czechoslovakia and took the nation by force. These are not ethnic Germans. The people in this territory right here, Bohemia, Moravia, they're not ethnically Germans. Similar ethnic group, but it's not Germans. You can't use this same excuse that he had been using before. This was not a war to unite German people. This was a war of conquest. Now, Hitler would explain, it's like, look, this was like a knife sticking right into the heart of Germany. We just needed to take this to get rid of the threat that possibly Czechoslovakia would be used as an avenue to attack Germany. That's how he tried to rationalize it. Slovakia was split off and would have a puppet government, but this was incorporated into Germany. The Allies did not declare war on Hitler for this, so Hitler was proved right that he could do this and they wouldn't declare war. But they did decide to draw a line, and they said no more conquest would be allowed. Now, Hitler did have another conquest in mind. He was eyeing Poland, and he did not believe that the West would fight him over it. But he was concerned about the involvement of the Soviet Union. And if they were to ally with the West and there would be some sort of union between them, Germany would find itself in the situation it was in World War I, surrounded by enemies. So he comes up with a plan to sabotage potential cooperation between the Soviet Unions, Britain, and France by negotiating the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact of 1939. They agreed that they could each do whatever they want so long as they don't fight each other, and there would be no war. This worked for Stalin, this worked for Hitler. They could both pursue other goals and not have to worry about war with each other. So this action really does shock the world. The Soviet Union, this communist nation, this is like Hitler famously hates Jews, but he also famously hates communists. They're like number 2 on that list. And here's Hitler making a deal with the communist Soviet Union. They seem to be the primary target of Nazism. And here he was saying, we won't attack you. So with that security in mind, Germany invades Poland. Not worried about fighting with the Soviet Union, so here it goes. This action, however, does finally provoke a response from the West. 2 days after the Nazis invade Poland, both Britain and France declare war on Germany. Hitler is shocked by this. He really legitimately did not think that they would declare war. He thought that he would be able to take Poland and still maintain peace. But that was not what happened. They do declare war. However, Germany is fully mobilized and ready for war. The Allies are not. France and Britain are not prepared for this fight. So World War II has begun, and the Germans have the advantage. That's it for this time. I'll see you next time. Farewell.